couple things that I just wanted to get out of the way before we get started on the subject matter. One, I want to thank everybody for hopping on. I see some very familiar faces, some people that have been with us since I think the very first, few iterations of this. And I see some new faces. So I'm real excited to have some new people on today. Jeff, Alex, those of you that are joining for the first time. If I missed anybody, thanks for hopping on here. And for those that have participated regularly, thank you for participating, and thanks for the feedback. I'm going to talk here for a second about some of the improvements that we're making and trying to expand the network. And we wouldn't be going into our second year if it wasn't for the continuous participation of our repeat participants. So thanks, everybody. The disclaimer to put up out front, number one, we are recording. Part of this initiative, as everybody knows, is to share this knowledge, and not everybody can dial in on a Thursday afternoon, evening, wherever you're at. So we do use Read AI to record these, and we are advancing the utilization of the recordings. We're going to start doing YouTube channel edits and putting this stuff on our website so that the information is accessible throughout the month, right? Everyone might be in a different stage of transition. So just because we're this informed group of individuals discussing transition checklists tonight, somebody might not have been able to join that needs to get that information, or they might want to join in February and know, hey, what did I miss in January? So again, putting out the disclaimer that this is being recorded using Read AI, and we will do some edits and do follow-up posts on LinkedIn and YouTube and everything. So if you have any objections to that, no hard feelings. The other disclaimer, like we've said before, this is IDP sponsored and IDP resource, but this isn't for IDP's benefit. This isn't for recruiting. This isn't for business development. This is part of our community engagement platform, and it aligns with our company values. Most of us are born in the Marine Corps, out of the Marine Corps, and not just the Marine Corps, but the entire Department of Defense. Part of our mission is to continue to support the warfighter while on active duty, transition, and post-transition. And this is really our through and during transition and post-transition part of support. One thing I'd like to share is that we're also making progress in supporting the warfighters while they're on active duty. We've got a joint initiative with SDFM, and we're going to be standing up a military engagement committee. We go out and we talk to the uniformed service members about how SDFM can help enhance their career while they're on active duty. So as far as aligning to company values, IDP is now reinvesting our resources and our time, and like I said, helping our financial managers and complementary MOSs while they're on active duty, through transition and after transition. Just a couple of notes about improvements that we've made. In the announcement, you saw me post the website. So please check that out. Provide us feedback on what we can do. Again, we want the information to be available throughout the month so that the individuals that need the information can get it. We also want it to be an interactive place. Lance is going to provide us some great information on a consolidated checklist, but we're going to upload a bunch of checklists so you can pick and choose from which ones are best for you and share the information with those that need it. In addition to the website, like I mentioned before, we're going to be using YouTube. We're going to be using Document Repository. And really, we're using all these tools and resources to try and increase our reach. So again, going back to a lot of us on the call are through transition. There are some individuals on the call that are preparing for, considering, or already in the transition or separation process. So I'm really excited to see us covering all ends of the spectrum, right? Some of you on here haven't even dropped your Appendix J yet or don't know when you're going to be doing that. So this information is going to be particularly useful to you. For those of you that are outside of it, really, really appreciate you being on, because it's the lessons learned and the network after separation that make this incredibly valuable and rewarding to us. So with that, Drew, did I cover disclaimers and intro? And I can get out of the way and let Lance run the show. So, and I did see that the website is posted in the chat. It's also been out there. So I want to really quick thank Lance. He started out in the program. I call it the program, with these meetings that we're holding. He started out in the program when he was still on active duty. He went through separation. He'll tell you a little bit about himself and his background. He's currently working with MCCS, and he put a lot of personal time into what I think is a really great product and a ton of information that's going to be valuable. all of us and our Marines and the people that need this information. So, Lance, thank you for one, participating throughout the first year, and two, volunteering to lead session one going into the new year. Last thing I'll say, based on your feedback as we were closing out the year, we said, what can we do to make the program better? One of the most common themes of feedback we got was pretty simple: put some more structure to it, right? Put some sequencing. And so we took your advice. We're starting out with what we think is kind of the general, hey, here's checklist, here's what the transition life cycle looks like. We're going to start as far out as 24 months prior to separation, and we're going to go post-separation. Then, as Lance will kind of indicate to you, we're going to map the follow-on sessions off of what are the highlights off of those checklists and what do people commonly want to know the most about. So with that, thank you, Lance, and thanks everybody for joining. Abby, if you want to share, take over the screen share, and then Lance, you can go ahead and introduce yourself and get right in the subject.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Glad to be on the call, helping out. So a little bit about myself for y'all that don't, excuse me, sorry. For everyone who doesn't know me, again, I'm Lance. I did financial management for about 8 years in the Marine Corps. I ended up commissioning, and then I became a manpower officer / adjutant. And then I separated in July of 2024. Luckily, I kept in touch with Pertel over the years, or Jim, excuse me, who was a great personal mentor. And when he found out I was separating, he gave me one of his checklists that he was using. So what I did is I just took that, combined it with a few other different resources that I had, and that's what you have before you right now. So just a quick overview of the master checklist. The first tab, that's where you're going to see all your action items, all your requirements that you got to do, the corresponding timeline. I broke it down in different buckets to kind of group those together. And then you'll see the additional notes on the far right side. It just gives a brief description of each of the requirements. And then right next to that, to the left, you got the supplemental info tab. Right there, if there was a certain area that had a lot of information, I just added extra tabs, and you can go there for a quick glance at different things. Now, for the timeline and the requirements, I know they may differ depending on your personal needs, your preferences, as well as whatever branch of service that some of you may be in. You'll see that it's more Marine Corps tailored. And also what I did is I colored on the action items in red. So the red is service directed. That is basically the bare minimum that you need to do in order to separate and pick up your D214. Everything else is highly recommended. And then lastly, I highlighted in blue, or I colored in blue, the upcoming town halls that IDP will hosting. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of the checklist, kind of go over some of the different focal areas. It won't be in exact order, and if anytime anybody has a question, please just interrupt me, and we can talk about it. But again, I won't be too long, so we'll have plenty of time to discuss anything further that anybody wants to dive into. So the way I kind of broke it down is for the first 48 to 36 months out, this is kind of your exploration / orientation phase. At this point, you decide you want to get out, and you're pretty much trying to confirm your separation retirement date. And with that, you're identifying your long-range milestones, the different things that will best position or posture you for a smooth and successful transition. So some of the focal items there is education and finances. What career path do you want to pursue? Do you have the necessary credentials to go into that field, i.e. education, i.e. degree, certification. And then also, as for finances, kind of just getting a budget into place if you don't already have one, and kind of looking at what income you'll need to make in order to sustain whatever your goals are. We're moving on to the 24 to 18 months out. This is more of your shaping and your planning phase. At this point, you're locking on your retirement and your separation date, and you're utilizing the checklist to build out your tailored plan toward that date and toward your preferences. I broke it down into kind of 3 different buckets. So it's identifying, scheduling your service prerequisites, you have your family, financial, and medical, and then you got career networking. So the first thing I'd recommend doing at this point is just reviewing that top 10 Do Them Now tab. This was published by a Master Chief, which you'll see a lot of his different items integrated into this checklist, and just gives a quick snapshot of different areas, the top 10 that'll be critical to your smooth and successful transition. With transition and service requirements, some of the main things, like I already mentioned, identifying that official separation retirement date, scheduling your TRS and kind of slating that out over the year, aiming to get that done, 12 months out. You got your career networking, right? Identifying a personal mentor. This is probably one of the most important things, at least for me it was, having Jim as a resource as I was separating about 18 months out. He was just a great resource to kind of point me in the right direction, different networking groups, etc. A lot of things I wasn't considering prior to getting out. So doing that it'll be very helpful. Attending job fairs, a PP&D advisor, it's personal, forget exactly what the acronym stands for, but it's just a personal professional development. MCCS, a little plug for my company. They have those resources available for people that want to go through that. Then you got your family, financial, medical, life insurance. I know Jim, when we were talking, knows quite a bit about that with SVP and different options there. Child care, are you going to be having your kid taken care of on base? Thinking of that. Medical record deep dive, right? This is a painful process. And for those of us who've been in for, 10 plus years, not only do you have Genesis, but you also have Alta, right? So there's a couple of different records that you kind of seek out, go to your medical records department and get those and start going through and making sure that you have everything on there, have everything in there to include, anything that you did out in town. And then where are you going to live, right? Me personally, for 18 years, I didn't pay state taxes. It was very nice being a Florida resident, but the wife and I decided to stay put in California when I got out. And so now, paying a little bit extra in taxes. So those are just some considerations. For the next little bucket, you got 12 to 6 months. This is more of your execution phase. So at this point, you're completing all your service transition requirements. You're preparing for your next career, growing your network, right? You hear network, but it's very important, obviously. Your medical review is complete, so that enables you to start preparing for your for the VA benefits delivery at discharge, or BDD. And just some other notable items, right? Beginning of unit checkout. Embedded in there is your, arranging your household goods, scheduling your final physical and your exit dental exam, doing some interview prep, right? MCCS, again, another resource for that, but you also have different companies that you can just ask for informational interviews, which I did a couple of. Creating a LinkedIn if you don't already have one, or refining it, kind of translating a lot of that stuff from military to civilian, and then start building out your master resume, right? Just listing everything under the sun for all the billets, all the duty stations that you've been at, and getting that on paper.
Hey, Lance.
Yep.
I want to pause for a second before you go in further into inside the 6 month window, right? So want to back up and touch on a couple of things, because we got a lot of individuals that have been through the separation process. And then we've got some individuals that are either just dropped their Appendix J or are considering it, right? So in reality, and I really appreciate how this is laid out going all the way back to 4 months, but I'm going to share, from my personal perspective, 48 months out, I was not ready to look at a checklist, right? I mean, I actually did know I was going to be retiring, and I dropped my papers, I think 14 months out. So felt like I had a pretty good window. Did anybody here really have that, not have that decision pushed on them, but did anybody come to that hey, I'm retiring, and it happened quick, you only got 12 months to plan, right? Ideally we would have had 48, 36, 24 months to plan, but and the reason why I'm asking that is because this is the ideal scenario, everything goes right, you've planned your career well, when you're getting out, right? But for a lot of us, the circumstances we were in dictated like, hey, you know what, I'm ready to retire. I'm going to do it now. And I want to do it in the next 12 months. And the point being, right, it's never too late, right? These things can be a check that you got to go back and be like, all right, hey, you know, I'm here, I'm 12 months out, but I know that I needed to do all these things, right? So just, you know, if anybody has a story or a case study that on the already retired, already separated side, you know, just curious, you know, again, and for those of you that are on the other end, hopefully you're, you know, at that 24-month period and you're like, okay, looking back, you know, maybe you're within the 48, but still time to do some of the things that you may be within that window.
Who didn't feel behind the power curve once they made the decision?
Yeah, right. Exactly. But you know, again, this is why this is a good product, because, you know, if you do feel behind the power curve, you know, something like this, and really calling attention to those breakout tabs. I know in a minute we'll probably get to highlighting some of those, but the last thing I want to emphasize that you pointed out, Lance, and I want to really drive this. The stuff in red, like Lance said, that's the mandated stuff. That's the shit that you're going to be told to do, right? If you go to the Marine Corps and you get your separation checklist, you go to unit checkout, that's just shit they're going to tell you to do, right? But that's all the Marine Corps is going to tell you to do. And if you look, the majority of the stuff on here isn't in red. Those are the things that you have to research and make decisions yourself. Lance alluded to just one quick one, like choosing life insurance. Should I do SVP? Should I not do SVP, right? That's where this network is extremely valuable, because you're going to say, hey, what were your decision criteria? How did you pick a life insurance company, right? Go to the tab on life insurance, and there's some criteria there, right? So I really want to drive home that last point too, is like, as Marines, it's, you know, we've had a lot of things dictated to us, right? Like, you know, schedule your medical appointments every 6 months, get your teeth cleaned every 6 months. Checking out and separating those things in red, that's what's going to be handed to you, and you're going to be told what to do. The rest of that stuff, you got to do some research on your own and use the network to kind of overcome that. So thanks, Lance, for letting me interrupt there for a second. Just wanted to make some points. Now, as you're going to dive into really the meat and potatoes, right, where we're all going to find ourselves in that boat, is like within that 6-month window, right? So,
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks, Lance.
Yeah, of course. And just personally, right, like, I think I had about 18 months heads up before I actually separated. So I would say I was able to squeeze probably 75% of this into that window. So you can make it work, and, you know, you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If, you know, you're breaking timelines and whatnot, you can just shift things right? Or excuse me, shift things left. So what is that? Yeah, for the next one, right, preparing for your BDD and shopping for a VSO. Some people might want to pay, you know, for someone, you know, a company to assist you with submitting your BDD. I know a lot of people do that and find a lot of success doing that. I personally went to a VSO aboard Camp Pendleton, and it worked out, you know, very well for me. I was happy with the rating that I got. But you should look them up. You know, you can go to the different Google reviews, etc., because they're not all created equally. And, you know, some will help you a lot more than others, but essentially a good one, in my opinion, will basically do your claim for you, go over all your stuff thoroughly, and walk it all through with you through the entire submission. Also, to call out during this time period is applying for SkillBridge, right? I won't go into specifics with SkillBridge. I know it's kind of a, you know, contentious subject for some, and I know the policy keeps changing, but just a quick plug, IDP is now an approved SkillBridge partner, so I thought I'd just mention that. All right, so 5 to 3 months, this is basically a transition period, right? You've already executed or at this point, you're executing your retirement ceremony. You've completed all your checkout requirements, your dental, your final physical, your checkout sheet with your unit. You're taking all that. You're submitting your outbound interview if you're in the Marine Corps. And also what I would recommend is definitely scheduling a D214 review with IPAC. It was the day before I was separating. I was still getting things updated, you know, as far as my training, as far as my education, my leave cell back. So make sure you're paying attention to what they have on that D214, because once they issue it to you, I really don't know what the process to get that changed. So It's probably not easy. During this time window, you got the career networking, right? Setting your LinkedIn to open to work, starting to do your job hunting and whatnot. I would recommend creating a USA Jobs account. That's if you're looking for any federal employment, federal employment. And also just mentioning the D Form 2945, the legal opinion. You can get one of those from your SJA, and it's basically just a document just providing an opinion from the SJA, for potential employment with maybe a federal, IDP, for instance. Well, they'll just basically note that it's not a conflict of interest, because almost never. And then finally, your compensation and pension exams, your CMP exams, right? You've already submitted your BDD, and at that point, the VA is going to take that, and they're going to contact a third-party examiner. That third-party examiner is then going to reach out to you, and they're going to schedule all your appointments. You have to make all your appointments. If you attempt to reschedule more than once, they will take the process and they'll go right back to the VA, and you'll have to do it all over again. So for anyone who's done a CFP exam, they can be pretty long and lengthy, and it's not something I would want to do twice. And just moving on, 2 months, final days. It's called like the admin and farewell phase, right? You have all your service records on hand, all your training, education, your orders, any personal files that you had from your computer. I recommend taking that and just making physical copies and electronic copies. You're applying for things like TAMP. It's the Transitional Assistance Management Program with TRICARE, or Retiree TRICARE, right, to make sure that you have coverage post-service. Getting with your PCM and medical, if you have any medication that you need, right, trying to get that 90-day supply to hold you over before you establish care with the VA or whoever on the outside. And just supporting all this, make sure you make your rounds around to throughout your work, different coworkers, whoever, say your farewells, just kind of maintaining that network, because you never know what connections will come in handy later on, right? And then finally, just post-separation, I just say good luck, and just keep going to those IDP social hours. And Jim, I want to thank you for all your mentorship. Very impressed with what you've done with IDP. I remember talking about this like 2 years ago with you when it was just an idea, and to see where it's at now is crazy. So now that I've kind of helped out with this, I know you said that you would consider me for employment. So
you're definitely on our short list, Lance. Thanks, man. Awesome presentation, and thanks for all the time you spent putting this together, man. And thanks for the kind words. Absolutely. Adam, see your hand up.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir.
Hey, so one quick question. How does it work, when you retire and you're looking at health insurance? And then how does your VA rating potentially affect that? So in other words, like I got a doctor, I want to keep my doctor, like Obama said I could do. So do I get to keep my doctor, or do I have to go to the VA first, or am I automatically, is Prime still available to me? Do I have to go select? Does anyone know how to speak to that? And does the VA rating
So I saw Roy's hand shoot up, and I think he's going to give you more information you can handle related to this subject. Is that why your hand went up, Roy? You ready to school Adam?
Yeah, this has become a nightmare for me on continuity of care. So
let me tell you, or you go ahead, Roy, and then I'll tell us where we're going. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Adam, the healthcare selection is extremely important. When you go to select TRICARE Prime, you move down a notch to the military treatment facilities to below the spouses of active duty parents, and you'll still have, you may be able to maintain continuity of care military treatment facilities. That should still work for that. Your referrals will continue for the care on the Prime side, but if you choose TRICARE Select, any referrals that you have that will cross over your retirement become null and void on your retirement date. It is very important to get with your doctors ahead of time. Usually mine took about 2 or 3 months advance to get out there with them. VA care as well is another concern as well, because it has long lead times. But with medical insurance like TRICARE Prime and or TRICARE Select with the VA, I use both interchangeably. If I can't get with the VA, I'll use my Select Healthcare and pay the copay. It's not the end of the world for me. You can try to go back and do VA reimbursement if you get advanced notice. Continuity of care out in town is a little bit of a cumbersome process with the VA. I didn't realize it was a 3 referral process. You get your first referral is authorized to call the doctor to make an appointment. Your second referral is the authorization for office visits, and your third referral is potentially the authorization for care. I just had that issue with podiatry where I got 2 of the 3 referrals, and the doctors refused to process the third. So it's an interesting slope, but with TRICARE Select, I have flexibility of care to make sure I don't have lapse of care, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. No, I appreciate that, Roy. I guess my family right now is already TRICARE Select. We've been Select for years. So, I'm familiar with the copays and the deductibles and all that for the family. And obviously I don't fall under Select right now. So, I don't see, if I continue with Select, I don't necessarily assume that there's going to be any changes for my family's level of care. And then it sounds like if I elect to go Select myself through TRICARE, and if I so choose, I can just ignore the VA and just pay the copays over.
That's
flexibility of care.
Very true, Adam. Yeah, that's exact. Go ahead, Roy. Sorry.
All right. I would utilize flexibility of care, especially with me with the sleep apnea. The VA supplies the parts for that. But I mean, if worst case they have a part shortage, I can use my TRICARE and do a stopgap for flexibility.
Yeah.
Adam,
I think it also depends. You got to assess the care at where you're at, what's convenient and everything. So where I'm at. You lived here. So it's a little bit different, but I'm just going to share my personal story, right? Like you just stated it, like you could go with TRICARE and just ignore VA. And that's what I've done because I've been in a remote facility away from military treatment facility for so long. And I was so used to it. And I say it's a flaw in my approach. I wouldn't recommend doing that, Adam. I would say explore both because like Roy said, then you have flexibility and options, but it's not an either or. You don't have to choose between VA healthcare and TRICARE. You can use both. And you have more options if you do them, but you don't have to use both. You could go strictly VA or you could go strictly TRICARE. Again, I haven't been to the local VA out here in Cleveland, and it's my own fault. I've got it on my list of things to do here in the first quarter of 25. But yeah, my family stayed on Select. And you can choose just like you do. Every November, you'll choose, do you want to stay on Select or do you want to go back to Prime? So Roy was spot on. The thing that Roy highlighted in more detail that he was spot on with is the difficulty of the transition for yourself. Like pay attention to the fact that you lose those referrals and you got to go through all that stuff again. But yeah, it's not an either or, Adam. Alan, I see not anything else to add, or anybody else got other experiences?
Some people had their hands raised, I think, so I don't want to jump ahead of them, but I do have some stuff to add. But
Lou put his up, but he took it down.
I'm
trying to get credit for being here, but we saw you.
I was gonna say for my personal experience, I'll say that for my referrals, it also depends on the VA center that you go to, because for me it was very, very easy. My doctor was at the VA. She was very willing to work with me, and she said, "Hey, if you've got a doctor out in town that you're comfortable with," she gave me the referrals right away. All she said is that I had to do a minimum or the mandatory once a year at the VA with her, just to make sure that everything was going accordingly and how I wanted it to. So it also depends on the VA that you want. Like if you go to the VA, especially when you're rating, like if you're 100% and you get free VA, like they can work with you to just make sure that you go wherever you want to be treated. So I just wanted to throw that in there, that it also depends on the VA and the doctor you have. Some doctors are willing to work with you, and some doctors are like, they want to make sure that they see you all the time and try to refer you out as little as possible. That's all I wanted to add.
California takes care of its residents.
Yeah.
I found them both to be the epitome of bureaucracy, but you owe it to yourself and your family to grind through it.
Yeah. Alan, did you have anything to add? To
Yeah,
what
no,
we said?
speaking along the lines of generalities, but sound advice I got from a fellow veteran who was given the TAP class or whatever they call it now from MCCS is, as far as between the VA and TRICARE, a little bit of trial and error is I would recommend that. Meaning, in due time, you'll figure out what you can get easily and conveniently from the VA as opposed to, going through TRICARE and vice versa. I know I forgot who it was. I think it was Roy who mentioned, sleep apnea. Yeah, it's definitely, there's certain things depending on your rating and what your conditions are. What you can get that's, what you can get easily or what you can get conveniently from the VA as opposed to TRICARE and vice versa. Like, periodic lab works, prescription meds, whether it be for blood pressure or whatever, to, sleep apnea, to CPAP equipment. You'll figure out, it doesn't take long to figure out, okay, I can go to the VA for this. And then, other things, they're pretty frustrating. So I'll try, I'll go through TRICARE. So it's a little bit of, I know it's kind of, we all wish that we just had one source to get it all, to get our medical care from. But that's what I found 2+ years into it. There's certain things I go to the VA for, and then other things to TRICARE. It's just the way it is. And I think someone else mentioned, it's just a nightmare sometimes. Not everyone, but my personal experience as far as, post-military getting, trying to get medical treatment. I thought active duty was challenging, but had some challenges post-military. But the good byproduct out of that is I just figure out, maybe I should just depend less on military medicine or medicine in general and try to keep myself healthy. So that's a little bit of a philosophical input, but it's been working for me. Lost 25 pounds since retirement, and heading in the right direction, at least I think, in that aspect. Over.
Yeah, great comments, Alan, and great plug for some self-care, right? Yeah, and it's funny too because you
I'm
look
having a glass of whiskey, Jim. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh yeah. Cheers. And it's also too, just to put a positive spin on it, right? How blessed are we all to have the choice? And we're over here fussing about, man, I got to choose between these two good healthcare systems. So the privilege that we've all earned, the opportunity, the right to have that different choices. Adam, but great question, and thanks for asking. Love diving into the topic. I'm going to put a plug in that March, like Lance's checklist, the things in blue, we've got a devoted session for that. So, come back in March, Adam, ask more questions. We'll use this question as a talking point. And yeah, so we're going to get through over the next couple months using this checklist now to drive, what are the things that are on most people's minds? You're spot on, right? One of the most difficult things to navigate is choosing health insurance. Before that, in February, we'll be talking a little bit more about VA. The other thing I want to highlight about Lance's product here, and Abby, if you can, just take and plug on some of those breakout tabs, right? So the more complex subjects, Adam, right? Lance already went and did some compiling of information, right? So VA medical, BDD and VSO life insurance. So we're going to make this product available to everybody. And it's great because it's a consolidation of so many resources. At the beginning, like I told you, you're going to checklist from your command. You're going to checklist when you go to TRS and TAPS. You can go to Military One Source and get a checklist. What Lance has created is really through his experience and the team together. It's a consolidated, capturing lots of resources in one place. So we'll make it available to everybody after the call through email or put it on the website. But I wanted to point out really one of the parts of this that got me most excited was those breakout tabs where you can find out more about the information in the master checklist. All right, Abby, could you go back to the master checklist for me? All right, so just a couple things that I wanted to highlight and reiterate one more time. This really starts in the ideal situation, for most of us, haven't had the opportunity to transition and do planning right. You get through this stuff, and you can pick this. The other thing that's great about this is the buckets, right? You can pick what's most important to you. When you pick this up, or when your Marines pick this up and you share this with somebody, you got to go, you know what, the stuff that's related to my family is the most important to me. So column B has that bucket. You can look at everything that has life insurance, daycare plan, right? Okay, first I want to worry about my family and all that stuff. So let me dive into that, right? You can use, finances, transition, all that. So the bucket column is really helpful. It kind of puts things so that you know what it's related to, right? And then, again, the supplemental info tab lets you know where you can get more information. And then the red and the blue, breaking it out, stuff that's going to be handed to you by your command, and stuff that you're going to kind of, that will have a breakout for with the IDP follow-ups over the next couple months. Real quick, go ahead, Grant.
So may I ask, Lance, are you licensing this to MCCS marriage counselors? But there's a lot of items on here that I think, being able to go over it with your family and also be able to delegate some of the things that need to get done to your spouse and partner is valuable. And it provides them some reassurance in the sea of uncertainty.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Grant. Thanks for bringing that up, because it's like, for us as Marines, we're going through this, and this is like our mission. We got to get through this, right? But the uncertainty and the anxiety that we're going to feel about this process, don't forget your family's feeling the same thing, right? So, great point, Grant. One, delegating helps you get through the process a little bit easier. It takes a few things off your shoulder, but giving your family a sense of ownership, involvement, man, it's going to make it easier on you and them, right? Getting them involved. So, no, good point. Appreciate it. Mike, I see your hand up. Mikey V. All right. Okay, Abby, let me take over the screen real quick. I'm going to share just a couple other sample checklists that you might see and that Lance might have used, or that I know we used in building some of this stuff too. So, like we said, so you're going to see a lot of different stuff. Right now, see my screen. It's the same one that Lance showed. So a couple things. One, quick plug, right? This is our website, like we mentioned. We're covering veteran transition checklist and planning resources, right? So sequencing it this way, because this is the starting point, right? You're going to transition. You've got the checklist in hand. You've looked over the checklist. All right, what's at the top of your mind? We kind of, with feedback from this group in December, Jerry, I'm going to come back to you to talk about that MHA stuff. We decided, hey, based on your feedback, this is probably the order to go, and these are some of the things that you guys wanted to hear. So we're going to kick those next. Hey, Mike, I see you rejoined and got your hand up again. You got good comms now?
I don't know. Can you hear me? I'm driving.
I can hear you, man.
All right. I didn't want to interrupt when you were wrapping up the stuff about medical, but I got a question. Now's a good time, or I can wait until the end.
No, man, go ahead.
All right. First, thanks for putting this together. This is awesome. Really going to be beneficial to me. Not that I'm being selfish. I mean, I am, because this is kind of a little plug for me. I needed this checklist probably more than a lot of people on the call, maybe Alex, and maybe Brandon, except he's going to be special. So first question is there a waiting list to have Jim Patel mentor you? Over.
There is, but there are ways to get
like
to the
an
top of the waiting.
advertisement.
What's that, Grant?
6 months.
Definitely felt like an advertisement.
Oh God, yeah.
All right.
There is a
Second
waiting list.
question.
Get in line, Mike.
All right, that's fair. The second question, and again, probably directed towards you, Jim, and maybe Adam. I don't know how many people you guys know that have retired out of McFamous, if any. I can only think of one, and I don't even know what his situation was. But for me, how was the process going through 325 for you, Jim? And then with me, I've had a lot of paperwork done, but I've gone through Henderson Hall. Like my extension form, I routed an AA form to Henderson Hall, even though I'm at Conda 325. they're just not responsive. So I'm worried for my retirement. I'm worried both ways. 325 is not going to be responsive, and or Henderson Hall's in DC, and I don't want to have to travel to do retirement stuff, right? So I just wanted to get your perspective on that and talk to you about how good 325 was or how bad they were for you. Over.
Yeah. Okay. Great question. Yeah. Being in a remote location, having to deal with the local reserve unit to get through your retirement. So Lance kind of made a point earlier. He's like, when you're choosing your VSO, you got to feel them out and see how helpful they are. Right. So, and it was a great point that he made, and encourage everybody when you get into VSO. So Mike, my advice to you is you're going to have to go to 325, be in the shop and find like the sergeant or the corporal that stands up when you come in and is like, hey sir, what are you doing? It depends. Like, I don't even know who the perso is there anymore. It's not the same guy that it was when I was there. He was somewhat helpful, but just through repeated calls, I got hooked up with Sergeant Patrick, and he ended up being the best resource over there. Right. So that's really the only advice I can give you on dealing with them. Once I got hooked up with him, everything was pretty good. I got all my documents on time. They did liaison with Henderson Hall a little bit for me. But if the perso or the chief over there aren't responsive, you may have to just like go over there, find out who kind of is going to be the best, who's the most responsive, and work with them that way. So I don't know, man, is that helpful or?
Yeah, no, that's good. And that's what I was planning on doing, is having to sit down in person over there just to get a feel for it. So I appreciate your insights.
Yeah. I mean, you know how it is with the relationship with the Marines here and the Marines over there at the reserve unit. Like, if we didn't call them and bug them, they wouldn't really know we were here, except for we're on their morning report. So, it may take some self-advocacy, to say the least. And then your question about Henderson Hall, I didn't deal with Henderson Hall much other than trying to get into a TRS class. And I did have to travel for it. I think they had the option. I think they have a remote option now. Could have gone down to what's the Air Force base here and done it, but I wanted to do a Marine one. So I did travel to DC for TRS. But other than that, no documentation that you shouldn't have to travel to Henderson Hall to pick anything up, anything like that. So.
All right, good to go. I appreciate it. And Lance, apologies I didn't get that document over to you. You'll get it tomorrow, I promise.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
I thought we had until February 6th, right?
Yeah, this is different, but it's same but different.
Yeah.
I'm computer illiterate, and Lance is going to help me out.
Got it. Yeah, no, great questions, Mike. Appreciate it. And anything local here in Cleveland, let me know. Happy to help out.
Oh yeah, you're holding my hand, buddy.
Of course. All right, cool. Good question. All right. Anybody got anything else on that topic? Okay. So what I was just going to do, I was showing over the schedule, right? So just putting it up there for everybody to see, what's coming in February. Now, when we were looking at Lance's checklist, like I said, it's a consolidation, it's a comprehensive collection of other checklists. So, we mentioned the Marine Corps order, like these are the things you're going to be told to do. Like Marine Corps Separations Manual has a checklist, right? You can see the extent in the detail there. So all these things are also captured on Lance's checklist. But I just wanted to show this, because you're going to see different stuff. For some of you, when you go to pick up your separation orders, like when I did, they had like an actual version of this in there, like, hey, it's part of the checkout process, right? Go to the internet, Google separation checklist, military.com has one. They've got some links and some things in there. Again, all this, theirs starts at 18 months. Lance's start at 48 months, right? So a little more comprehensive. All these things are on our checklist, but I'm just showing you this stuff so you know that there's other resources out there. And we're going to have these other checklists up on the website. We're downloading them all. This is one that I liked. I used it for certain things when I first started building my own. I like the graphic layout of it, the timeline model. But again, this is actually from the Transition Assistance Program website. So I'm just screen sharing these so you can kind of see some of the other stuff that's out there, see where we gathered some of the information from. like, again, we're going to make all this stuff valuable, but when you go back to what Lance put together, you're really not going to find anything more comprehensive. So last thing, the top 10, do them now. And really going back to the master checklist again, some of these things you're going to get into it, and you're going to, a lot of these are based on your personal assessment of how important it is to you and what's the value of it. When you get a mentor, someone who's been through the process, talk to them about their experience. Did you prioritize this? Did you not? Right? Like little things like, here the number one thing is connect and follow these individuals on LinkedIn, right? Like I totally undervalued the utilization, the utility of LinkedIn in the transition process and even afterwards, right? I just wasn't up to speed on it when I started my transition a couple of years ago, and so some of these things may not seem, as critical, but, don't underestimate them. Ask people about it. Ask how helpful it was, because you may find some of those little things to be some of the most helpful resources that you come across, right? LinkedIn's pretty valuable. Lots of other things on that list that'll jump out and really end up being very useful. So, Lance, again, appreciate your time, appreciate all the kind words, and appreciate you putting all this together. Great job with the delivery and presentation. With that, I'm just going to say, does anybody else have any questions related to the checklist or related to any topics? We had a medical insurance question. We had, go ahead, Mike.
Hey, sorry, I do got another one that Lance kind of hit on. He talked about residency and taxes. So me and Alex Mays were just having this conversation, or I was kind of, I was hunting for information for myself because I'm a Michigan resident. Obviously still have some stuff going on in Michigan, property business and whatnot. Anyone find any loopholes on maintaining residency in one state but living in another state? Because I don't want to be living in a blue state when I retire, you know what I mean? So yeah, just a question there. I got to do some research on it, but just if anyone has any info on that, that'd be cool to hear about.
It gets a little different when you get out. So a former Michigander myself, unless you're there, you don't get any of the benefits that the states offer. You have to show that you were in the state typically for a period of days. A mailing address is good for business purposes, but as far as claiming, like Michigan has, if you're 100% P&T disability rating, you get one vehicle registration and taxes free. You get one property free on taxes. If you're not there and you can't prove that you were there for a certain amount of time, they'll take that away and you got to refile for it. So Michigan specific, that's what I know. As far as other states, it's not like having that old CAC and you can just say, oh yeah, I'm in the best tax state. So I think it's a little different for each state, but that's the extent of my experience.
Yeah, I think same true for me. My entire Marine Corps career was resident of Florida, retired, and quickly found out I had to become a resident of the state of Ohio. So yeah, I think that holds true, Mike, and we'll see what we can find out, like references or anything to kind of to back you up on that. But yeah,
no, I'm gonna build a loophole, and then we can add it to these briefs.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. One thing I wanted to loop back to. So we were talking about healthcare and health insurance, and Roy was very eagerly shot his hand up to answer Adam's question, and he was just as eager 2 weeks ago when him and I were together in DC, and I can't remember. Roy might remember their titles, but it was the director of the Defense Health Agency, so like an Army colonel, three individuals briefing the panel about the future of, military medical treatment, and was a subject matter. And Roy jumped up and asked a really good question to them that kind of touched on some of the stuff that he briefed to you guys, the answers he's got. So I know Roy has some good information on the future of military medicine that we gathered from that brief that we were at. Roy, did you have a couple talking points you wanted to share?
Yeah, so the panel was there for the DHA, Defense Health Agency, I think Chief Financial Officer, and then they had the VA representative there as well. So one of the issues they ran into was that they understood that there was a gap between the Defense Health Agency and the veterans, the VA side of the house. So they're actually working, and it's extremely long term, working together in order to allow the VA to gain access to MH Genesis. So what does that mean? Your medical record is now there in their system and in DHA system. They're also doing another initiative as well to try to get some of the VA healthcare patients into the military treatment facilities to take care of them, just to maintain their skills and knowledge as healthcare professionals, kind of help with the personnel that have chronic or long-term illnesses. Now, another initiative too that they're considering is that when if they get the MH Genesis online, and if a service member has a outstanding referral while active duty, their intent and their future vision is to allow that referral to continue after they retire, after the member retires, so you don't have to do like I did when a referral ends to go find a primary health care manager or wait a few months to get the VA to reobtain those referrals. So they're looking to do initiatives. Obviously, it's nothing anytime soon, but future outlook is to be able to merge those systems to allow for a smoother transition and continuous care for members. But that's what we had on that portion.
Yeah. No, thanks, Roy. Yeah. And I thought, Roy, I don't know what your interpretation, but I thought the comments in their acknowledgement of the challenges were pretty encouraging, right? So when you realize, and it took me a little while to kind of, I understood it, but going through retirement made me understand it better, right? Like the VA is not part of the Department of Defense, right? It's its own federal agency, right? So you've got DHA, Defense Health Agency. They're responsible for your healthcare when you're on active duty and all that, right? Your compensation from the VA is totally different than your compensation from your retirement. It's DoD funding, VA funding, and right, like, so different organizations, and they're trying to it's to me, it's good news. They're trying to streamline that transfer of medical record, transfer of care between what is, historically two separate agencies, and not necessarily seeing the need for the synchronization. So thanks, Roy, for bringing that up, and put a note in the chat and reminding me to come back to that. And again, we'll dive into that a little bit more and make it another talking point in March when we come. So if anybody's got more questions about that. But yeah, allowing both to have access to data is going to be really useful in the future. Somebody else coming off mute have a comment or a question? All right, we'll take a second here for open discussion. Any last comments or questions, save rounds or alibis related to the checklists, what we've got out there, and resources that'll be available. Okay, so I'd like to take just a second and really kind of put a plug in there, right? So this is a great crowd. We've had a couple people come on and drop off, but at the most we had 22 people on tonight. In 2024, we executed 7 events. We didn't have one every month. We executed 7 events. The highest participation was just over 20, and across the 7 events, on and off, we had around 41 to 45 different participants, right? So, we've had the regulars, people that are on every week. We've had some come and go. We've had some other guest speakers. And just looking at the crowd, right? I don't know the 409 number. Is that you, Clark? Sergeant Clark? Or Sean? You're not Sergeant Clark anymore. Okay, well, there's a 409 number. But anyways, the point that I was going to make is, like, looking at the crowd, right? This is all senior individuals, right? And so the reason why I'm bringing this point up is I just want to continue to encourage everybody to spread the word. If you found the information useful, thank you. If you didn't find it useful, or if you thought there was things missing, please let us know, right? This is still a work in progress. We're still building the plane as we're flying it, whatever, term you want to use. But, first session of the year, I'm super excited with the turnout. I appreciate it. I'm super excited with the structure that Abigail and Drew and the team have been putting to this. I want to thank them, here with everybody on. They've put an incredible amount of work into this behind the scenes, because the company believes in this effort, and we believe it's a really good utilization of our resources. And it's not that I don't love talking to all of you all the time, but the day that I'm going to be the most excited about this is the day when a couple Marines that I don't know and have a personal connection with show up, right? Because one of you chief warrant officers or one of you gunnery sergeants that are still on active duty go back and like, you know what, like, because this isn't just for retirees and all of us old dudes, right? What we really want to do is help the youngsters that are getting out after 4 years and don't have the time that we do to prepare and all that, right? So, just a plug and a plea. If you thought it was useful and you think you have Marines in your command that could benefit from it, it's not just for financial managers. It's not just for Marines. We're working with SDFM. We're going to start engaging with MWR and other venues. But really, word of mouth is the most powerful way to spread the word. So, all of you, share it with one person this month, share the website, share the link to the meeting. And for those of you that are still wearing a uniform and have Marines under your charge, if you've got individuals that separate and you think they can benefit from it, please ask them to give it a try. And if you, again, last thing I'll say it again, if you got suggestions, we're open to it. Part of putting the sequence together, putting the schedule together and making it a little bit more formal was the feedback that we got from you guys at the end of the year. So as you can see, we'll take your suggestions, we'll run with them, and we'll try to make it better. And with that, as usual, I encourage everybody to stay on, chat, catch up, talk about whatever, any additional questions that you might have, share stories or whatever. But again, thank you, Abby, Drew, and the IDP team for the work that you all put into this behind the scenes to make it happen. Thank you to everyone for participating, especially the new joins. And thank you, Lance, for leading the discussion and the work you put into this. So, all right. Cheers.